following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to the Right to Know Show. Today my guest is Mr. Kevin Avard, who is running for State Senate in District 12. Welcome, Mr. Avard.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored.
Yeah, well, I am honored to have you. You're a well-known person here in the city.
I hope that's a good thing.
It is. Let's talk. I just want to talk a little bit about when you were a House rep in 2010 and a candidate in 2012. What was the big difference in those years in the House, and what made you decide to run for State Senate this time?
Well, when I first ran for state rep, I mean, obviously we were very worried about Obamacare, and a lot of us just flooded to local politics just to get involved so that our voices could be heard and the people's voices could be heard. Mm-hmm. And I think we did a darn good job. We reined in spending. We cut the budget 12%, and we left the House better than it was, because we left a surplus of $72 million. There was a lot of work to do that. There were 800 bills per session. Yeah. Think about that. And that's 800 committees, basically, that you're going over bills after bills. And then, of course, you have your amendments. And it's kind of hard to narrow down specific ones because there's so many bills, and there were a lot of heated topics on different levels. And I thought we did a really good job. I served on the Redress Committee. Mm-hmm. My passion's on the redress, and as time goes on, people will understand why my passion's there. Okay. Because it has to do with transparency. Right. But I garnered a certain amount of votes in 2010 through 12. I tripled my following after that, and we still lost somehow in a wave, the Democratic wave. Right. So right. I don't know if that answers your question. There is a difference, and I don't know if they outworked us, outsmarted us, I'm not sure, but I'm glad people are having to show IDs this time. That's right.
Oh, you mentioned I noticed that you are a member of a number of councils. One is the Council of Advanced Education of Manufacturers. Tell us what that's about.
Yeah, that was, Governor Lynch actually put that together, and the Speaker had me sit on that temporarily for a period of time to fill a gap. Obviously, the person who was on there originally couldn't fill it. I sat on that with Senator Molly Kelly. She's the Democratic. She was the ranking individual on that. And basically, the gist of the committee was to work with the manufacturers in New Hampshire. What do you need for us to help you so that you can employ our students or our graduating people? And emphatically, they were banging on the tables, and they were saying, listen, we got the jobs. We have the jobs. But the kids, when they graduate from high school, can't do the simple arithmetic. I was lectured, I don't know how many times, leaving that up by people from Charlestown, different manufacturers. They've got some great jobs, starting $35,000 to $75,000. Listen, if you want them to go to college, they said, we'll send them to college. We'll have them do that advanced math later on. But what we need to do is get them in a situation where we can get them into applied working ready. Mm-hmm. And get them involved, with their working skills. And as they mature, we'll pay for their college, but they got to learn how to do simple math. Right. Have you seen the Common Core math lately?
I haven't, but that was one of the topics I talked about. I was going to talk to you about it. So that it's not only a local issue, but it's a statewide issue.
It's a statewide issue. It's a national issue, and people are complaining left and right. And the way that it came about, I don't like it. It didn't go through the legislature. They blocked it. It never went through the committees of the House or the Senate. So they skirted the people. Mm-hmm. And they implemented it without the people's authority. And then it basically takes away local control with federal testing. So now we have to get our students ready for the federal. That's troubling to me because that's central control. Right. We're individual states with individual needs, and towns are individuals, and children are individuals. And everybody learns differently.
Right.
Everybody learns differently, not this whole cookie cutter situation. And some kids just cannot learn the way other kids learn.
Right.
Some are audible, some are visual. And I think Common Core basically it's going to frustrate, it's going to collapse. Everything that seems like the Fed's touch collapses. It's a disaster. I was one of the original people that actually voted for that new program, NEO. I don't know if you've heard about NEO, Network for Educational Opportunity. For years we were arguing over the fact that, well, geez, we need vouchers because some kids don't learn well in the public schools. They need to learn in the private schools.
Right.
But, the parents are paying their property taxes, and then they're also paying for the schools on top of that. And they're not benefiting. And so to alleviate that, the argument was, well, we need vouchers. Well, we have a constitution that doesn't allow vouchers. So we had to think of a way to work outside the box so that we can make sure that those kids were being reached. The argument used to be that if we get vouchers, then all the rich kids will go to the private schools. Well, let me tell you something. All the rich kids do go to the private schools.
Right.
And the kids that can afford them if the parents are not happy with the public schools. So where does that leave the poor and the indigent? So we came up with an idea. Actually, they came up with an idea up at the Capitol, and I just thought it was brilliant. It allows businesses to get a portion of their taxes, their business profit tax, if they donate it to, say, NEO, that organization, Network for Educational Opportunity. It allows them to write that off, get a credit for that on their business profit tax, and that money is designated to children in poverty. Yay!
Yes.
When Johnny or Susie cannot learn the same way. Perfect example. I'm a singer. Everybody knows I'm a singer. I like to sing.
Yeah. So do I, but I can't, so.
You can.
No, I can't.
It's a good
Trust
thing.
me.
Try it. You got a good bass, a good baritone voice.
Yeah.
The lead guitar player in my band, Jared, was just a phenomenal guitar player. He graduated second in his class in Berkeley. I mean, the guy, when he plays his guitar, he can play two parts at the same time, and he's not breaking a sweat.
Yeah.
But he failed through high school. Sure. It wasn't as though he couldn't apply it.
Right.
He learned differently.
Right.
I learned differently.
Right.
If anybody knows my background, I've lived in Nashua for most of my life, but I was in an orphanage for 4 years, St. Peter's up in Manchester, and I remember them trying to work with me back then. It was a traumatic time. We suffered a little bit, and we ended up in the orphanage for 4 years, and then it was just a traumatizing time in my life. And when you look back at it, you wonder, that's why I didn't do so well in the younger years.
Right.
I went to Temple Street School and finished there. Went to Spring Street and then Elm Street. And then finally I went to Tabernacle Christian School in Litchfield. And it's like the light bulb went on.
Right.
I just learned differently and in tune. But it was a private school that brought that out, and there were certain things. So people need to have a choice.
Right.
And I don't think Common Core gives you that choice. I think there's standards, and the feds, how are they doing with the VA?
Yeah.
Healthcare?
Yes.
Shall I go on? Right?
There were a lot of issues here. But I mean, Common Core, even when it was last year, was a major issue. And I think one of the focuses with the school board locally here in Nashua, I know you're running in a number of cities here, was that there wasn't enough time to implement it or to look at it to see how it was. I think they, like you said, they threw it at them. So
I interviewed Mark Conrad, and if you come on my shows, you know that I have a couple of TV shows here. I don't grill you. I give you a chance to tell your side of the story. And Mark very eloquently told his side of the story. And he's for Common Core. Right. I'm on the opposite side of that, and we're going to have to agree to disagree on that. But that is one of the things that we both can agree on, that the teachers were not made ready. Right. This is hurled upon them, and then they have to scramble, plus doing whatever they normally do. So they got a big burden. Sure. And now, and my final question to Mark was, well, okay, now the teachers aren't ready, but the parents aren't ready either. They come home with this homework, and we're scratching our heads. And he said, well, there are a couple of places online you can check. Well, yeah, okay, I got, time is of essence, especially if mom and dad work all day.
Yeah.
And that, you know, you want to help, and you want to. It should be something that you should be able to help a sixth grader, seventh grader, eighth grader.
Right. Absolutely.
When you can't answer the questions, you.
Right. How are you going to help them exactly? You also mentioned the redress of grievances. Why don't you tell our audience what that is all about?
Thank you. Well, the redress of grievances, Article 31 in your Constitution allows you to petition your government so that if you feel the bureaucracies or the government of any part of the government is coming down upon you and is overreaching and overstepping its bounds, you have a right to petition. If you read the preamble to your regular Constitution, the federal Constitution, you'll see how that the colonists were petitioning the king, and the king was ignoring them. Mm-hmm. And over, the people were petitioning the king, and the king would ignore. And he made their burdens harder, kind of like whistleblowers.
Right.
So, so on a local level, well, if you look at your First Amendment, it's the last part of your First Amendment, that the people shall be able to have, the right to speak.
Right. Freedom
of religion, and the right to petition your government. So you have it on the federal level, and you have it in your local level. The Speaker O'Brien did create a committee because there were a number of petitions that were ranging everything from the Attorney General's office to places like the town of Rochester, having secret meetings for 9 years.
Right.
How do you hold these people accountable?
Right.
Courts where, parents' civil rights were being violated, ad hoc restraining orders or accusations unfounded, just so that you could work the court system and take a child away from a good, loving parent.
Right.
DCYF, we tried to get them involved as far as audit some of their practices, because I don't know if you remember what was happening just recently down in Massachusetts with that young lady.
Yes.
New Hampshire gets an F. And so,
yeah.
How do these things come to light? How do you hold your government in check? How do you create transparency? Will you allow the people a voice?
Right.
We founded 28 cases of abuses. People would come in with their documents stacked. We worked through the summers, and we listened to their voices. We saw corruption. We had a situation where Jeff Frost, a retired Marine pilot, made a couple of real estate transactions, and he was within the law. He was acting properly. But the banking department and the Attorney General's office said, no, you're not. And they basically stormtrooped his house and his attorney's office. Make a long story short, they made a plea bargain with Jeff Frost. They said, look, you can plea bargain, it'll be 2 years in jail, $500,000 fine, or 5 years and an $800,000 fine. Well, the problem with Jeff was, I'm innocent.
Right.
So after a battle after battle, he winning in courts after courts after courts, all the way up to the Supreme Court level, Jeff Frost was found innocent. It cost him $185,000 to exonerate himself.
Which is non-recoverable.
Which is non-recoverable. And so now the Attorney General's office comes to our committee because Jeff is filing a grievance. I have been grieved. And because the government has unlimited funds to beat you up all day long. And it doesn't have to be just the Attorney General's office. It could be the Department of Education. It could be the Department of Transportation. It could be the Department of Environmental Services. It could be the Department of any department that has administrative law or rules. And that's a key note. It's important to understand that bypasses the people's civil rights.
So is this a case where you're guilty until proven innocent?
Well, yeah, pretty much. Until you prove yourself innocent. There's another case where it was the Department of Environmental Services. I want to finish Jeff's real quick. The Attorney General's office did come to our committee. I asked him point blank, Mr. Richard Head, what happened? And he said, we misinterpreted the law. Those are his very words. His misinterpretation of the law cost Jeff Frost $185,000 and Jeff's out of $185,000. A small business up in the Lakes region had a dock. The dock was there for years. The dock did a certain UE or whatever, and they put it back. Department of Environmental Services came up and said, hey, that doesn't belong there. We don't have that on our list. No, we've had this in the family for 50 years. No, that's not. And this company had to defend itself against the Department of Environmental Services. Come to find out, after thousands of dollars, after worries of fines and regulations, somebody found a picture of the dock and exonerated them.
Oh.
But in the meantime, they had to defend themselves against the departments. Did they recoup their money? Did it come back out of their budget? Oops, we made a mistake. Well, put that between two pieces of bread and take a bite.
Right.
I'm out of the money. I'm hurting because of all the sleepless nights. And what's next?
Right.
How do you hold these government officials accountable?
Right.
I want to do that in the Senate. I want to bring that to the Senate.
Well, your district covers Brookline, Greenville, Hollis, Mason, New Ipswich, Rindge, and wards 1, 2, and 5. So what are the challenges you see facing the Senate this coming year?
Facing the Senate, well, obviously, there's a huge, Maggie Hassan wants to increase her budget 18%. We can't afford it. Yeah. She spent the $72 million, at least $50 million of it, of our rainy day fund. There still is problems with our pension problem. I was on pensions as well. Right. And we still need to fix that. Our bonding is in jeopardy. We have a $6 billion unfunded liabilities. How are we going to pay for this? Right. In addition to that, our county budget went up 9%. The news didn't report this. Your county, and then of course the gas tax. So we have the gas tax. Well, okay, great. We've got the gas tax. Let's fix the roads, right? Well, the problem is there was an amendment. Gary Daniels, who's running in District 11. Gary Daniels submitted an amendment to the gas tax. So because it was going to pass. It was Democratic House. They want to spend, they're going to spend. Right. So the amendment was that, okay, then the money has to go to the roads and the bridges. Oh, no, we can't do that. No, we have all these other little fingers in the pie. Right. And so, enough is enough. We don't have a revenue problem. We have a spending problem, and that has to be reined in. Medicaid expansion. That's just an increase. Obamacare was sold to us with a lie. It wasn't supposed to be a tax. We were supposed to keep our doctors. We were supposed to be able to have better insurance. Everybody was going to be insured, right? The premiums were going to go down $2,500. It passed the Supreme Court because it was a tax. And every time those premiums go up, it's a tax increase. And the people don't have a voice on that. Does anybody remember how we got founded? Right.
Tea Party.
Because there was taxation without representation. Now these private industries will be able to raise your taxes because there's a need, and it will not go through the legislature. If you like Congress or don't like Congress, that's your business. But they're your voice. Same here in the House and in the Senate. We're your voice. People have to understand, don't demonize the very people that represent you. Granted, they're not doing a great job. Yeah. But
well, you feel there's a lot of animosity. There's been a lot of change in representatives and senators, both on the local and state and federal level, because they're unhappy with what the government is doing. So you're for open government, and you think the industry should be regulation should be lifted off of industry in the state to help the economy? And you think that's it?
Lifted off? I don't know. Lifted off or deregulated or smarter. Streamline the process to get here to open up a business. I see you're wearing orange.
Yeah. Well, yeah. My wife is English and Scottish, so.
Well, there's a company recently that just tried to open up a business here in Nashua. It's Orange Therapy. I had him on my show. Just talking off camera, he had a really difficult time getting, he was going to quit. He actually had to talk to my opponent, and who happened to pull strings. Fine, I'll give you credit for that. But when you have to call a senator to start a business, right? That's almost, it should be a lot easier. It should be a lot easier, and the paperwork should be not redundant, and the fine should not be excessive. You know, our business profit tax should be cut so that we can at least be competitive with Massachusetts.
Right.
I believe the number is 90,000 people exodus the state every morning.
Right.
Both in 93 and 293. So, you know,
so since they exited the state, the traffic is horrible. What's your feeling on the rail system? I like the segue.
Yeah, I like the idea of the trains. The constant question I have is, how are we going to pay for it? Are we going to sacrifice the CMAQ, which is the federal money? Or are we going to bond it? Will the state allow us to bond it? Will it constantly be operating in the red? Chances are it will, because it's a train. It's a government program. And it will, it's just how much?
Right.
Who's going to pay for it? Will it be the town of Nashua, city of Nashua? Will it be Manchester? Is Ringe going to want this? Is Laconia going to want this? Is Claremont going to want this? Rochester? And is it so that those people can come to the rail and go work in Massachusetts?
Mm-hmm.
Who's going to pay for it? That's the key. I think it's a great idea. You know, I thought the mayor at one point did say that she wanted to do it incrementally.
Right.
And from what I also understand, it's going to be the MBTA that's going to be taking care of the maintenance. And we just barely got a police department. We just barely got them their contract. It took 4 years.
Right.
How's it going to be working with the MBTA?
Right. Right. Also, let's just ask you your position on casino gambling in the state. So I'm sure it will come up before, when you're in the Senate next year. You know, what?
Yeah, I haven't. You know, I've seen some studies on it, and it's. You know, Neil Kirk calls it the poor man's tax, and not too many people like Neil. I shouldn't have said they don't like him. He has his detractors. I don't think if we're going to allow casino gambling in the state, the mindset is to generate new revenues. And I think it's important for the people to understand that you send your legislator not up there to learn how to find new revenue streams. You send a legislator up there to protect your liberty, your freedoms, your way of life, and the quality of your life. It shouldn't cost you your quality of life, your freedoms, your liberties when they get up there.
Right.
And it's not their job to find new revenue. Because then we're just serfs. The casinos, I've got mixed feelings. Unless you make it legal for everybody, I think no, because you're going to give one or two individuals or that power, and that breeds corruption. And I think we have enough of that.
Right.
I've asked people when I'm door knocking everywhere I go, do you think we have corruption in our state? Everybody says yes. Is anybody doing anything? Mm-hmm. Is anybody shedding any little light? It is the economy. It's important. Taxes, important. Freedom, liberty, it's important. But you have to have the transparency, and you have to have somebody that's willing to be transparent. Mm-hmm. You know, I think you've stopped by my office for the Center of Redress. You saw the list of all the people that we had there.
Yes.
Up on the board. People that are crying out for help because of overreach. And we want to continue that in the Senate. I don't see anybody pulling for us up in the Senate, not on this level.
Right.
You know, a senator can really be a voice, and I want to bring a TV show there up there so that you're with me. You know,
right.
You'll be there, and we can shed a lot of light.
Right. And
when light comes into the room.
Right. I was looking on Googled you. Some of the issues you cited were like cronyism, which you brought up, personal freedoms and unfunded mandates. I mean, those seem to be pretty paramount to you.
Yeah, well, you know, no child left behind. Was that an unfunded mandate, pretty much? Mm-hmm. Common Core is the same thing. Mm-hmm. You know, we have to look at the pension funds. By the way, it's a dark cloud. When we left it with a $72 million surplus. and guess who got the credit for that?
Yeah.
Right? I asked Charlie Arlinghouse, Center for Center for Public Policy. It's a non-partisan industry. Anyway, I said, you know, what's going to happen when we leave office and we leave the $72 million, what do you call it, surplus? And he says, Kevin, you know you have done a good thing. And there's an intrinsic value to that, right?
Sure.
But now when we're going there, we're going to inherit a mess. And guess who's going to get the credit for that?
Yeah.
But somebody's got to step up to the plate.
Right.
And we can do it. So I know New Hampshire can do better. Mm-hmm. And we can't just thriving's not enough. We can compete with Massachusetts. We can cut taxes. We don't need an income tax. We don't need to increase any new taxes. We just got to cut some of our spending, deregulate to some degree, cut our business profits tax by 1%. That once again makes us competitive with Massachusetts. Energy costs are really important. Are we running out of time?
Yeah, about a minute and a half left.
A minute and a half.
Yeah.
So there is a way to do that, and we have an infrastructure Route 3.
Right.
Let's get the pipeline, instead of letting it go through Hollis, let's go up Route 3. Let's build along Route 3. We have the infrastructure. We got the Northern Pass. Let it come down Route 3. Let's work there, and let's lower the energy cost, because we just found out they're going to skyrocket this year.
Right.
Why does everything happen after the election?
It always does.
Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate this.
Well, listen, you know, I just want to say that you've been endorsed by a number of very formidable people. Deb Shorter,
oh yes,
former Senator Bob Smith, and Sandra Ziem, who's also a school board and a county commissioner here. So
she's as sweet as pie.
yeah, she is. So.
But don't mess with her.
No, I've known her for a number of years.
Yeah.
She's a really nice lady. She says what she thinks, you know,
Yes, she does.
and I think that's what the people need, who are going to represent them, to say what they think, whether it's popular or unpopular, so, you know, they know the truth. Tell the truth. Right. Absolutely. So, listen, I want to thank you for coming on my show. I know you're a great host on this TV station, and I appreciate you coming on my show, which I'm just a small
Thank you very
privilege.
much.
Thank you. The Right to Know Public Access Show is aimed at providing knowledge of current issues, policies, and the decision-making process that affects the lives of the citizens of Nashua. My mission is to help the citizens understand city politics, in that they may make informed choices in the city where they live. I wish to inform, educate, and enlighten the people of Nashua, because they have the right to know.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.